Welcome back. In the last 11 videos, we built the entire architecture of Kabbalah, from Ein Sof to Tikkun, and ended with how to actually study the Zohar. But the Zohar did not appear in a vacuum. It emerged from a tradition, a lineage, a way of reading Torah that goes back to the earliest sages of Israel, a tradition that was already ancient by the time the Zohar was compiled. That tradition is Midrash. And today, we're going to explore a specific branch of it, Midrash Aggadah, the storytelling tradition, the place where the sages took the Torah and opened it, not through law, but through narrative, parable, imagination, and hidden meaning. If the Zohar is the summit, Midrash Aggadah is the mountain range it stands on. And if you skip the mountain range and go straight to the summit, you miss the roots, you miss the soil, you miss the thousands of years of voices that laid the foundation for everything the Zohar reveals. So, what is Midrash? The word Midrash comes from the root Darash, to seek, to inquire, to investigate. Midrash is not commentary in the modern sense. It's not someone explaining what a verse means. Midrash is the act of pressing into a verse, of leaning on it until it opens and reveals something that the surface reading conceals. The sages looked at the Torah and they saw gaps, silences, unexplained transitions. Why does God ask Adam, "Where are you?" when God obviously knows where Adam is? Why does the Torah say Abraham lifted his eyes before he saw the three angels? What was he looking at before? Why does the text say Moses was heavy of mouth and heavy of tongue? What does that mean precisely? Every gap is an invitation. Every silence is a door. And Midrash is what happens when the sages walk through those doors. Now, within Midrash, there are two broad categories. Midrash Halakhah deals with law. It derives legal rulings from the Torah's text, how to observe Sabbath, how to structure a court, the details of ritual practice. Midrash Halakhah builds the legal architecture of Jewish life. Midrash Aggadah is the other side. Aggadah means telling, from the root Haggadah, to narrate. Midrash Aggadah is the tradition of story, of parable, of theological exploration through imagination. It doesn't ask, "What must we do?" It asks, "What does this mean?" And what is God really saying here? And what happened in the spaces the Torah left empty? And the character of Aggadah is unlike anything else in religious literature. The sages of the Aggadah were not timid. They put words in God's mouth. They gave inner monologues to angels. They imagined what the sea felt when it was asked to split for Israel. They described God weeping over the destruction of the temple. They told stories of God putting on Tefillin every morning. And what is written in God's Tefillin is not, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is your God." It is, "Who is like your people Israel, a unique nation on earth. God's Tefillin are a love letter to humanity. This is not blasphemy. This is intimacy. The Aggadah treats God as a person, not in the philosophical sense, but in the relational sense. A God who argues, who regrets, who laughs, who mourns, who plays with the Leviathan every afternoon. The sages understood that you cannot have a relationship with an abstraction. And the Torah is a record of relationship. So the Aggadah meets God in the register of relationship, through story, through drama, through the only language that can carry the full weight of the encounter between the infinite and the human. And the sages were not afraid to disagree with each other. A single verse might generate 5 different Aggadic interpretations, and all 5 are recorded side by side. Rabbi Akiva says one thing, Rabbi Ismail says another. The Midrash doesn't resolve the contradiction. It holds it, because the Torah is not a document with one meaning. It is a living text with infinite depth. And each sage, standing at a different angle, sees a different facet of the same diamond. Now, where do you actually find Midrash Aggadah? It's not one book. It's a vast literature spread across many collections, compiled over centuries. The earliest and most foundational collections include Bereshit Rabbah, Midrash on the book of Genesis, which is one of the richest Aggadic works in existence. Every verse of Genesis is open, turned, questioned, and responded to through multiple voices. Then there's Shemot Rabbah, Vayikra Rabbah, Bamidbar Rabbah, Devarim Rabbah, Midrash Rabbah on each of the 5 books. Together, these form a massive commentary tradition that spans the entire Torah. Beyond the Rabbah collections, there's Midrash Tanchuma, which organizes its material around the weekly Torah portions and often opens with a halakhic question that then pivots into Aggadic exploration. There's Pesikta DeRav Kahana and Pesikta Rabbah, collections organized around holidays and special Shabbatot. There's Pirkei DeRabbi Eliezer, a narrative retelling of biblical history rich with cosmological and angelological teachings that directly influence the Zohar. And there are dozens more. Yalkut Shimoni, Midrash Tehillim on the Psalms, Seder Olam Rabbah. The Aggadic tradition is enormous. It spans from the Tanaitic period, the era of the Mishnah, roughly the 1st and 2nd centuries, through the Amoraic and post-Amoraic periods, well into the early medieval era. We are talking about a continuous tradition of creative, theological, narrative interpretation stretching across 7 or 8 centuries of active composition. But here's what most people miss about Aggadah. It is not just storytelling. The stories have layers. The Rambam Maimonides warned that there are three kinds of people when it comes to Aggadah. The first takes everything literally. God literally weeps. Angels literally have a fixed number of wings. The dimensions of paradise are precisely as described. The second diminishes it entirely. They assume the sages were being naive or primitive, and they throw the whole tradition away. The third, and this is the one that matters, understands that the Aggadah is operating in the language of mashal, of parable, that the service story is a garment, and the garment exists to clothe a body of truth that is too powerful to be stated directly. This is identical to how the Zohar operates. In fact, the Zohar in Parashat Beha'alotcha gives one of the most famous passages in all of Kabbalah. The teaching about the garments of Torah. It says that foolish people see only the outer garment, the story. Those with more understanding see the body beneath the garment, the moral or legal teaching. But the truly wise see the neshama, the soul of the Torah, which is the hidden mystical meaning that the story was created to carry. The Aggadah is the garment tradition. It is the storytelling layer that carries the secret layer. And when the Zohar cites a Midrash, which it does constantly, it is not quoting the sages as a historical reference. It is reaching through the garment to touch the soul of what the sages encoded. The Aggadah and the Zohar are not two separate traditions. They are two layers of the same tradition. Now, for those who want to actually study Midrash Aggadah, there is one addition that I want you to know about. The Kleinman edition of Midrash Rabbah, published by ArtScroll, the Schottenstein imprint. This is, in my view, the single most accessible and thorough English language gateway into the Aggadic tradition. Each volume gives you the original Aramaic and Hebrew text, a clear English translation, and extensive commentary drawn from the classical sources, from Rashi, Maharzu, Eitz Yosef, Matnot Kehunah, and others, woven into flowing explanatory notes that illuminate the text without flattening it. What the Kleinman edition does exceptionally well is hold the tension between the literal and the hidden. It doesn't reduce the Aggadah to just a story. It doesn't over-mystify it either. It lets the sages speak, provides the context you need to hear what they are saying, and trusts you to go deeper on your own. It gives you the tools without doing the inner work for you. There are currently volumes covering the major Midrash Rabbah collections. Now that we have talked about the Midrash Aggadah, I will see you on the next video. Shalom.